Since 2017, the Unplugged coding project has reached 45,000 learners in direct coding workshops, trained 1,200 educators, and distributed coding kits to 500 schools. This was possible because we could reach out to mostly schools and communities where there are no computers. Through this, we have now developed a scalable and sustainable module that can be rolled out throughout Africa. When one reflects on coding in schools, it is important to consider the purpose of introducing coding in schools. A very important point to note is that it is not to produce software developers. That would be the mandate of higher education institutions. Schools do have a responsibility to make all learners aware of the growing need for software developers across the continent. But the most important reason for introducing coding in schools we will highlight later in the presentation. Many will be aware of Richard Akoto from Ghana, who started to teach his learners Microsoft Word on a blackboard because of a lack of computers. This photo went viral on social media a few years ago. Within days, Richard was receiving donated PCs and laptops from across the world. This is a beautiful photo of Richard teaching his learners with his new devices. But the question we want to ask is whether this is the way to take the African child across the digital divide. We are faced with harsh realities in different countries. In South Africa, 16,000 schools do not have computer labs. Only 5% of Ghana schools have computers, and 89% of learners on the continent have no access to computers at home. ICT Works reports the following challenges for computer education in Kenya. Lack of computers, dysfunctional laboratories, and the cost of computers are highlighted. Many schools have challenges regarding electricity, internet, and security. Regarding teachers, the majority are not qualified, while it has been found that many teachers are intimidated by computers. Feedback we are getting from other countries suggests that these are common challenges across Africa. So we have to conclude that putting learners in computer labs cannot be the solution for the vast majority. So the critical question remains, how do we get them all across the digital divide? We are proposing that unplugged coding is the solution for Africa. When we set out with our Unplugged coding project in 2017, we set the following as our objectives. There should be no need for computers, only cell phones. Teaching should not be dependent on the availability of electricity, internet, and big budgets. Recognizing the skills of teachers, basic teacher training should be enough to empower teachers without intimidating them. And although our emphasis is on fun activities, we should not compromise on quality. Reflecting on these objectives, we want to highlight that the challenges mentioned earlier are all addressed. So what do we mean when we refer to unplugged coding? Many of the games which learners play have elements which could be used to introduce them to coding. Hopscotch is a great example of a game that provides instructions to kids which they then respond to. This is a great analogy of a computer program being a list of instructions that tells a computer what to do. Rope skipping often has patterns which are similar to repeating loops in coding. As part of our project, we include various play activities in class which introduce coding concepts. This photo is from a rural school in South Africa, where learners respond to posters as a list of instructions. An important part of coding is pure problem solving. Various activities can be found on social media, and teachers need to be made aware of this. This is a photo of learners doing computational thinking activities on the pavement in Mpumalanga while waiting for their transport. The Tanks coding app has been the flagship project since 2017. It makes use of mobile phones, tangible tokens, and image recognition to introduce coding concepts to learners in a gaming environment. In each challenge, a tank is maneuvered through a grid through different block commands. Within the context of the Tanks app, learners are also taken into the physical world before they start playing with the app.
So in this scenario, the tank needs to move backwards, turn left, and then move forward twice. So the learner packs out the code using the puzzle pieces, takes a photo of the code. When happy that it's the correct puzzle pieces that were recognized, you press yes and your tank moves.
Within the context of the Tanks app, learners are also taken into the physical world before they start playing with the app. Tanks introduces advanced coding concepts such as loops, nested structures, and optimization as learners move through 35 levels. To complement the Tanks app, a coding kit is available which provides lesson plans, instructional videos, and other resources. One coding kit is the minimum a school would need to introduce coding to their learners. Being sensitive to the problem with the theme of tanks, we have reskinned the app as Rangers, with the theme of game poaching in Africa. It covers the same coding concepts as tanks, as well as other resources in its coding kit.
The coding game Rangers was developed to introduce learners to coding without the use of computers. But it goes much further than just introducing learners to coding. It also teaches them soft skills like group work, communication, strategy, problem solving. So what we do is we use a few cell phones and some customized tokens, visit schools where the learners then play for 45 minutes to an hour. And during these workshops, they're introduced to coding, but we can also see the dynamics of group work. This can also take the form of a coding club at schools, where schools can run this weekly or daily without needing fancy and expensive computer laboratories. We've added to this game the concept of game poaching, and they literally have to try and save the rhino by catching the game poacher before the game poacher gets to the rhino. They also get information about game poaching in Africa. This way they are informed on environmental issues on our continent.
Our Boats app is aimed at foundation phase learners. It uses the basic logo commands, which are move forward, move backward, turn left, and turn right. The player steers a boat through a grid, removing plastic tokens from the ocean. Furthermore, there are multiple choice questions which introduces the topics of marine pollution and solar energy. Boats also has a coding kit with 10 lesson plans and resources, which introduce learners to various coding concepts through mainly interactive play activities. In all three of our coding apps, the concept of gamification makes for a fun learning experience. All the apps also make it possible to present tournaments where learners can compete individually or in teams. Since 2021, we have conducted various physical and online teacher training sessions, needing not more than 4 hours for a session. The feedback received from teachers speaks to the earlier challenges of computer education in Africa. It is important to note that teachers left the sessions feeling empowered because coding had been demystified and they realized that they are not dependent on technology. They were looking forward to integrating coding in class and presenting fun workshops. Within a typical coding curriculum, algorithms and coding forms one component. Other important components include digital citizenship, computational thinking, and design thinking. Consequently, we have developed various offline lessons that address all these components. Some of these lessons have the themes of solar power and recycling. We are happy that our project covers most of the pillars that will be found in a typical coding and robotics curriculum. So, we need to return to the original question as to why all schools should be teaching coding. Which brings us to the skills identified as skills needed in the 21st century. While coding is on the list, other skills include analytical thinking, problem solving, critical thinking, and reasoning. We were convinced that an unplugged coding intervention can address these skills very effectively without the need of computers. To conclude, although it is always good to strive to provide schools with computer labs, we strongly believe that the 21st century skills mentioned earlier may be better taught in an unplugged coding environment. The photo on the right was taken in Soweto, South Africa. This photo of learners next to the road in rural South Africa being introduced to our coding games after their bus broke down symbolizes what can be done on our continent.